Hey, everybody, this is Mike from the Reelblack Podcast, and I am so excited because right now I have the honor and privilege of sharing the next hour with Josiah Howard, who is the author of one of the preeminent pioneering books on Blaxploitation called Blaxploitation Cinema. And he's got some good news about that book, which is very difficult to find. But we're here in the spirit of love for the genre of black film from the 70s until 1980. And we're trying to get this in before the end of 2020, regardless of when you're watching this, because 2020 is the
50th anniversary of the Blaxploitation cinema genre. 50 years since the first time Hollywood, a billion-dollar industry, recognized our clout, our power. Hollywood is about money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we were never recognized as contributing to the magic and the financial windfalls that were cinema, when we were always going to the movies, always, and always giving our money. And so this is the 50th anniversary of when we took over, when our films became the number one films. It's a special time.
In terms of identifying it around one film, three films. I know 70 was a big year because it was the breakthrough.
Yeah, so it's fun because we have the 70 to now where we are, 2020. So it's 50 years. 1970 is when Cotton Comes to Harlem was released. It was a multicast comedy that was low budgeted and was not expected to do anything. It broke all of the expectations for finances from a low budget film. And so Hollywood said, wait a minute, this is a black film. We thought that just, this was going to be a small little thing we do to be a part of the Black Power movement. It was much more than that. It showed them that this was something they should invest in. And so 70 proves that. And then 71, the gates are open. We have Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song and Shaft simultaneously released, which proved that this is really a market. And then the floodgates open, and it just continues.
Let's because we are locking this down for prosperity. There were other films prior to that were done by studios. Learning
Yes.
Tree being Gordon Parks' one for Warner. Watermelon Man was 70 as well.
Yes.
What distinguishes Cotton Comes to Harlem for you as far as you making that the film that trumpets the beginning of blaxploitation?
Yes, so Cotton Comes to Harlem is different than Learning Tree and, all of the other films that were in the 60s that also presented certain characters in films that were militant and Black Power centric and modern. But Cotton Comes to Harlem was the most modern we had ever seen. First of all, it happened in Harlem. The name is right in the title. And it was modern people who were not a part of the world that had come before. They were not trying to work within the system. They were happy to work without of it because they had questions about the system. So that was a whole new presentation. That was always the case, but that was, so now we see it on the screen. So it was really modern in a way that hadn't happened before. We had militant characters in 60s films, but we hadn't seen a whole black world of people who were modern and were not in agreement with what had happened before.
Okay. So
Grandma was unhappy, Pappy was unhappy, the pimp was unhappy, the child was unhappy. Everybody was thinking, I ain't doing it like the man tell me to do.
Mm-hmm. And it's important film for me because I'm a big fan of comedy. It's the feature film debut of Red Fox, who plays for those who haven't seen the film, he plays a junk man in Cotton Comes to Harlem, and then 2 years later he would end up being the star of Sanford and Son, which is his signature role.
Yeah, he's just incredible. All of those wonderful actors were given an opportunity to show themselves in a film.
Right.
Not on stage, not on the Chitlin circuit, in a film.
Right. Well, that seems to be one of the things that happens when we get these cycles. And there are a lot of people now we're in the midst of a big cycle because there's so many more platforms for us to see ourselves. And the belief system that I inherit is that it's not going to end because every day there's a new platform, there's a new desire to be seen. Now, my culturally, what blackness is, what black film represents to the audience and to the people that are financing the film might shift to a point where I get uncomfortable. And that's what the channel is trying to fight to protect, that black film not go the way of mumble rap. I love my culture. Yes. But I see like a correspondence between then and now in the sense that you had so much latent talent ready to go in 1970. Mm-hmm. And then also in 1989, which would be another breakthrough year for black cinema, there was, in terms of comedy, there were a whole lot of people that were ready for prime time, so to speak. And now, in this era, we're seeing a lot of people that were trained and ready to go behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera. So now, the process of the filmmaking is much more together. So, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons why Blaxploitation ended as a cycle, there were a lot of factors, and maybe you can get into them, was just the lack of quality. So now I think that we've surpassed, there's so much training and talent involved in all platforms, in front of and behind the camera. I don't see that being a problem. But let's talk about the Blaxploitation cycle, if you can. What thoughts come to mind as I throw these things out?
I like what you said about it was a time when people were prepared and ready to go. So it couldn't have happened if there weren't people ready to go, if there weren't young actors out there who were talented and available and could do it. So there was a confluence of events that happened. There were beautiful black people out there waiting for the chance to be in films and to be in starring roles and to work, as you said, behind the scenes. Coffee is the very first black film that ever employed a black female stunt person. Mm-hmm. There were no black female stunt people in Hollywood. This Coffee is 1973, before 1973. Before then, if there was a black person who had to take a tumble, it was a white person who was painted black and took the tumble. Coffee is the first film that employs a black woman, an African-American woman, to take a tumble. Right. So doors were opening up behind the scenes, as you point out, and that's underreported on. That is one of the benefits of Blaxploitation. Wonderful films that were made to entertain, low budget, for a specific audience, but they were profound in the impact they had on the audiences. Me, seeing black people on screen that look like me, it changed everything. I didn't think we could be movie stars.
Yeah, what's your introduction? I'm a little younger than you. I'm 51, so all of the things I love Blaxploitation because I can look at it and it reminds me of my childhood. It's like I remember those images, but I'm guessing you're a little older.
Yeah, so I'm 58, so I got 7 years on.
Okay, so you weren't really seeing them in the theater either.
That's a generation.
You weren't going to see Pam Greer.
Yeah, but I was also 11 or 12.
Okay,
so it was 11 or 12-year-olds seeing that, and it was wow. First of all, I had never, and I say this a lot when I talk, I had never seen a nude person before, right, at 11, because my family families do how they do. My family was never nude. My families didn't curse. I didn't hear people cursing, even though we grew up in an impoverished neighborhood. I was not aware of drug culture. I never saw anybody put a needle in their arm. That's in Coffee and the other films. So it was a shock to the system. And I thought, oh, well, this is a part of our lives too. And I was you could be revolted by it. You never seen sex acts before. That was in the films. Or you could be, wow, I want to know more about all of this. And I fell into that category. I wanted to know who are those people? Who wrote this? Who directed this? And that's where it came from. It came from a shock and appreciation.
Right. Right. So do you have any favorites? What's the first one that you remember seeing, and where did you see it?
So I grew up in New Jersey, in a small town called Plainfield, New Jersey. It's an African-American town.
Home of George Clinton.
Yeah. Very
All right.
good.
So you're imbrued with the funk.
Yeah, and so an hour away from New York. So New York was, when you turn on the news, it was New York news, not Plainfield, New Jersey news. So very New York centric place. And the first film I saw were Blackula, 1972, and then the other films. So babysitters would bring me. I was 11, so when my parents were not available, babysitters would babysit me, and they would bring us because they were teenagers. They wanted to see these films,
Right.
even though I was 10 and 11 and was not supposed to be seeing them. So I saw those films at the time. Coffee had a big impact. Trouble Man was very profound. Of course, Superfly. But Blackula was the very first one, and it was just, wow, look at us. I had never seen us on screen before. We had Sidney Poitier. We had Diane Carroll. We had other wonderful people. But they weren't like those people. They weren't like that. They weren't holding guns and beating people up. So it was we can do that too. It was a lot of fun.
Right.
Very empowering.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because those films were designed for a pre-mall culture, white flight urban audience.
I like that. Exactly. And isn't it funny that they went into the malls? Isn't it funny that Superfly knocked The Godfather out of the #1 spot in Variety? Because they did embrace it in the mall. They weren't going to the inner cities. They were afraid.
Well, I'm saying they hadn't built them yet.
To the film.
They haven't really built malls yet. That's an 80s phenomenon. So you had these mega theaters like in the middle of big urban areas with 500, 600,000 seats that were literally empty because they were playing Mary Poppins. Yeah. And
abandoned.
In comes, I know what to do with this, let's put some action.
Yeah. And so it's a great time. It's a great time of using what's already there, empty theaters, of invigorating a willing and waiting audience, African Americans, young people, and just supplying Hollywood with the product that they wanted.
Exactly.
To make money. Yeah. And so that's what it was about. We gave them, we paid for the lights to keep kept on.
Mm-hmm.
We paid for all of that stuff when they were having trouble.
Right. So what are some of your favorite films? And I'll give you a few of mine.
So I want to hear yours first.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to start with Spook Who Sat by the Door. That's the one I put on my website.
It's a wonderful film. It's wonderful from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
The story, the acting, the presentation on film, it's wonderful. It's really great.
Yeah. And we talk about that in another podcast. But yeah, very subversive. I kind of like subversive cinema in general. Movies that you see and you say, how did that get made? And so when it comes to Blaxploitation, I gravitate to the Dolomite movies. I gravitate to Darktown Strutters. I'm like, how in the world, how desperate were people just to make a quick buck that they could greenlight, Darktown Strutters of all things,
Yeah.
So
first of all, I love that title. That's a title there.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into the N-word titles, and there's 5 of those.
Well, that's true.
But Darktown Strutters is fun. It sounds like, ooh.
Yeah, it's like a biker movie directed by a guy, an old director who used to do beach party movies, and it just has a weird energy about it. But it has all these weird, it's a Cinderella gets kidnapped by a guy who is sort of like Colonel Sanders and Trina Parks. Everybody's flexing. Dramatics. What you see is what you get.
Yeah,
because
singing through jail bars. What's that about? Wow, I could get them to do that.
It's a crazy movie. But on the flip side, when I also like things like Claudine. I like Trick Baby. Um, I love all the films Michael Schultz did back in the '70s, and to this day. I mean, I think, he's the guy that deserves the hardcover bound volume, if in my
Yes, he does.
estimation. I mean, if you go to a bookstore and you see books on Orson Welles and Quentin Tarantino, it shocks me why artists like Michael Schultz don't have a book like that, or even, less of a seller would be Gordon Parks' film work. There's 30 books about Gordon Parks' photography, but nothing that investigates his cinematic career. So I'm lobbying for that. But
He's wonderful. Yeah, he's got some of the best films that out there. You mentioned some of your favorite films. I did not hear a Coffee. I did not hear a Superfly. I did not
I was gonna
hear.
get to Jack Hill. I love both Jack Hill Pam Greer movies, Coffee and Foxy Brown. Foxy Brown probably more so because Antonio Fargas lights it up in terms of the comedic appeal, and so I'm a big Antonio Fargas fan. And even had a chance to meet him and talk about making Putney Swope.
Mm.
Which is not, it's not on the radar for this, but Putney Swope is
No,
one of my all-time
but it's a
favorites.
special film. Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe I left some of those out for you. Who knows? What are your
So
favorites? I mean, I
I'm gonna
think
ask the question.
Superfly is pretty
So
obvious.
number one, I get asked this a lot. So number one is Coffee
Okay.
because it's all of the genre turned on its head because there's a woman now toting the gun and a woman negotiating the world, the underworld. Second would be Superfly. As much for the wonderful, gritty New York City locations and the wonderful acting as it is for the Curtis Mayfield soundtrack.
Mhm.
The music of our times is just incredible. I love Mom's Mabley film is can't think of it
Amazing
now.
Grace.
Amazing Grace.
Stan Lathan.
As a comedy, you said you love comedies.
Mm-hmm.
I love that as a dedication and ode to her career. She dies 3 months after she films. Before the film is released, she never gets to see it. But it is a documentation of her wonderful talent, and it's a great story. So those are the top three,
Okay.
and I love many other ones too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that list. I mean, Amazing Grace. I think it's set in Baltimore, but it was shot in Philadelphia. So
Yes.
I have a kindred thing to it, And the same with Trick Baby, shot in Philadelphia. I'm from Philly,
Yes.
so looking back, I didn't grow up in West Philly, but just the idea that my town was captured is a great feeling, and I can go back and look
When
at
I
it.
when I spoke to Arthur Marks, who did many of the films, he said that my main goal was to present the story and the black actors, and my second goal was to present the town. Because if I do Detroit North 2000, 9000, everybody from Detroit will see it. If I do Harlem in Harlem, everybody in Harlem will see it. So it was a built-in selling point, he said, to have it, have the locations a part of the story. It was what they discussed. They could have done it on a Hollywood lot, but they said, no, we should go to a location because more people will even come, than would have come before.
That's sort of like the James Brown approach.
Yes.
Like when he did Night Train, he just shouted out every city, so everybody
Yes.
had to
How
listen
about
for
that?
listen for their
Yes.
stop on the train.
Yeah.
So
That is a very smart marketing thing. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and the music. Let's go into the music, because soundtracks. That's one of the things that we have lost, and it carried so much. I would say so many movies probably would have been made, certainly in the 70s and definitely in the 80s, black film, if not for the fact that soundtrack CDs existed or soundtrack albums existed. And now we've virtually lost that ability to pre-promote a property by having a song on the radio a few weeks before, the way Superfly did. I mean, you're
Shaft.
Shaft. Yeah, you're of that era. I mean, and that won an Academy Award, Shaft's soundtrack or
How about
theme
that?
song. So Yeah, I guess we can go into in terms of music and then bringing, like saying we're talking about the 50th anniversary of film, Blaxploitation Cinema, and I know your book is coming back out. Let's talk about that before people fade out on this, because most people only watch a few minutes of this. So let's talk about the book real quick, and then we can go into soundtracks, and then infiltrating the industry so much in terms of not only the commercial appeal but the critical acceptance of within the Academy Awards era.
Yeah, so it's fun. So our Blaxploitation Cinema book it's 12 years old, and I say that a lot, but it's not 12 years old at all. It's coming out again in February 2020. It's available for pre-order at FAB Press, fabpress.com. They're a wonderful publisher who publishes quality coffee table books. It's beautiful color and black and white pages, a lot of respect to it. So I'm real lucky because I love the films and I found a publisher who loves the films. And as much as I knew, and I do know a little bit about the films, they also provided me with artwork and posters and photos that I had never seen before. And I'm very didactic and look everywhere. So it's a lot of fun when someone says, oh, I never saw that before. So it's a lot of fun. They're a great publisher, and it's a fun time. We're lucky because there's a new era of appreciation of African Americans in cinema. And so the book keeps getting republished because cinema studies is a degree you get from college. And in many colleges, UCLA and here in New York at NYU, it's required reading for certain courses. So from that, it's become a textbook. Again, not written to be that. I wasn't that calculating. But we're very gifted by that being an audience, a built-in audience.
Right. So in terms of the music as a gateway into this realm of Blaxploitation cinema, what are some of your favorite soundtracks?
So the music is as large a part of Blaxploitation cinema as many of the scripts and acting is. It's was one of the things that sold it. So favorite soundtrack albums from the Blaxploitation cinema, we're going to start with Superfly for top 20 hits. Wonderful soundtrack. I love Trouble Man. It's under referenced. It's Marvin Gaye presenting his soundtrack album for a Blaxploitation film. I love so many of them. I love Blackula. And I would just say that Trouble Man and Superfly are my favorites. Barry White did one of the soundtrack albums. Gladys Knight and Pips did them. Anybody who was popular than Gene Page. I'm partial to Trouble Man and Superfly.
Yeah. Well,
and of course, Shaft.
Yeah, Barry
is one of those ones that's overplayed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
overplayed because it's it's the go-to one. Everybody knows that one. That film's been made 5 times.
It's true.
So everybody knows that song, right? It won the Academy Award. It won the Oscar. The Academy Award and the Grammy. So, and it was #1, which means white pop, not just soul.
Right.
So that's the
got played everywhere. It got people to rush to want to see the movie, but and it also got Isaac Hayes a movie career. It's like the song was so popular they talked him into acting, So that
I'm going to correct you there. They didn't talk him into acting.
Okay.
He talked them into acting.
Okay.
I've talked to directors. And he said, now I will only sing it. They wanted him to do more soundtracks.
Okay.
I'll only do it if you write a film role for me. That's where Chuck Turner comes from. That's where he talked them into it. And they said, yes, we'll write a film role because we want to make that money from the soundtrack you're going to be doing.
Right. And that's a crazy film. I didn't
want him to be an actor, but him.
We're kind of drifting. I'll pull it back, but that opens another cavern into this realm where Blaxploitation films were also used sort of as experimentation for young talent. The director of that film went on, to win an Academy Award. Yeah, Jonathan Kaplan.
Yes. Well, I've interviewed him, who is such a cool guy. Yes. So yeah, it opens up many doors, and it is a venue for Black talent. Sports stars become film stars. Models, female models, Jean Bell, Tamara Dobson, become film stars. They weren't actors. They didn't study acting. So there is a window for anybody young and Black and attractive and ambitious to move through. And there's a place for them.
Right. But, also through the Corman camp, the Roger Corman, the Corman camp, the ability of movies be made cheaply with young film school talent. You see people like Jonathan Kaplan, their first work being in Blaxploitation, Sexploitation. Jonathan Demme, who would go on 10 years, 12 years later to win Oscars for Silence of the Lambs, directing Pam Greer and Caged Heat. So I think it's a very interesting thing that we don't really have, unless you're talking about Instagram. Like if someone were to make a feature film and just put it straight on Instagram, there's no real space anymore within a studio system for experimentation. Things have to either make a whole lot of money and get a whole lot of attention instantly, or you're going to fade away. And I think that's a big difference between then and now.
I agree completely. I think you're right on there. Also, there was this market that nobody talks about anymore, a drive-in market. So you could make films for just the drive-in market. You weren't making them for theaters or for television. You were making it for this one thing that's kind of gone now. And so it could be low budget. And there would be a place for you to present that low budget product. Yeah. And it would be picked up. And it would be shown. So it's different. There was one more venue than there is now.
Yeah, the 90s, I'd say, just thinking about it, the 90s probably did movies more of a disservice than any other time period. Not just because it got corporatized, but because there was always this argument that, we can make it back on home video. We can sell the DVD and make our money back. Whereas in the 70s, the tickets were $2, if that, $1.50 for a matinee.
Yes.
And you had a very short window to make your money back, and you knew you weren't going to show this on an airplane or on television, so you kept the budget low.
Very good. Very good. There was no idea of larger revenue after the showing at the drive-in or the downtown theater. Right. That was the goal, and that was how it was calculated.
We'll take it city to city.
We're going to make our money, and that's it. It's not going to be shown on TV. Exactly. So, different world.
Exactly. And it birthed a lot of stars. People that went beyond the 80s and continued to make films. It's a short list, but can we speak about some of your favorite stars from that era?
Yes, well, the signature one is Pam Greer, who we love. In all honesty, I don't think she's the greatest actress, and I never have. But she's the greatest star. And so there's actors and there's stars, and she's a star. She's someone that you love to look at, listen to, and get involved with. I love Richard Roundtree. I love Jim Brown, even though when I wrote the book, I did not know the long history of abuse that is part of his story, which saddens me, and the lawsuits and all of that stuff. But he's a great film star. Fred Williamson, who's one of the rare ones.
To clarify, because we're speaking to younger people. There were rumors of domestic abuse with Jim Brown.
Yes.
And misogyny. So just to be super clear, people can Google it beyond that.
And we can also say that he denies that.
Yes.
But I was challenged by that because it happened a lot, and it's a big part of his story, whether it be true or not. Fred Williamson is probably my favorite because he's a sports star who becomes a film star, and then he becomes a director.
Right.
So he becomes his own master. He becomes his own master. He makes his own films and goes to Cannes and sells them himself. So I think his is a great success story.
Absolutely. Well, my numero uno is Richard Pryor, who you first start seeing in the Mac. I guess would be prior to that, Wild in the Streets. I think he's great in, but that's a low budget American International picture where he plays the drummer in a white rock band. Another subversive film, where everybody over the age of 30 has to basically get killed or taken on an LSD trip for the rest of their life, and young people get to run the world. But Richard Pryor,
I love him in Dynamite Chicken. Have you seen him in Dynamite Chicken?
You know what? We have every single second frame of Richard Pryor in Dynamite Chicken on the channel as we speak.
I love Dynamite Chicken. No one ever talks about it.
He must have performed that for like a bottle of rum or something.
Yes.
And a cigarette lighter.
And he is the magic.
I'm sorry, Richard, that was cold.
Ties it together. Love him in that.
That you missed the joke. I said he did it for a bottle of rum and a cigarette lighter. But
as one does, as one do, ain't nothing wrong with it.
It's a great performance, yeah. Yeah, it's basically his early act performed in a playground.
Completely.
It's a great, and you can see it on the channel if you haven't seen it yet. Dynamite Chicken. But Richard Pryor, my number one, and he stole the whole movie, The Mac, for me. And then from there, Which Way Is Up and Car Wash and all the stuff he did with Michael Schultz would be my favorite stuff of his.
He also makes it an impression in Lady Sings the Blues. He's distractingly good.
Oh, without question, yeah.
He's like, oh, hey, Richard.
Piano Man.
Yes, he's incredible in that. Incredible.
Yeah, and he was the true superstar of the 70s. He's coming through that, and also benefiting from having a recording career. He's helping sell the movies by selling albums and vice versa. So
and the concert performances,
by 79 doing the live and concert album, or filming his album. By the time, if you see a trajectory there, it's like going from recording at Red Fox's nightclub album that basically was a bootleg almost, to by the end of the decade being in a Superman movie, and being the highest paid black actor ever. So there's a lot happening. As we're talking, I'm just trying to think in terms of corollaries between then and now that might help people process where how much has changed, how much hasn't changed. Let me give you my 3 albums. I'll just give all Curtis Mayfield soundtracks for my record: Claudine, Let's Do It Again, Superfly, and was it Claudine, Superfly, and he had 3 out the same year. Make Yours a Happy Home is Claudine Gladys Knight. Oh, Sparkle. Oh,
remade with Whitney Houston. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that takes it to another echelon. Remake, retelling of the Supreme story.
Yes,
but with a good cast. Now, I mean, Philip Michael Thomas is somebody who's largely forgotten, but if you look at his work, he dominated the 70s. He's next to Billy Dee in terms of number of credits for films. I mean, do you have any thoughts about leading men?
So I like Philip Michael Thomas. He's in this film called Stigma. Have you ever seen that one?
It's on the channel.
It's a low budget one that no one ever references.
It's on the channel.
Yeah. See why I'm here? So I think he's really great, and as you said,
he plays a doctor who's trying to stop a sexually transmitted disease from
very
taking
modern,
over town.
Very modern idea. Yep, he's great, completely great, natural and wonderful on screen. Leading man again. We'll go back to Fred Williamson, Jim Brown, and the others that were
Billy Dee.
Selling. Yeah, Billy Dee's okay. He's all right. to me. He's not a favorite, but he's certainly competent, and
Okay.
he certainly was the man.
Now, see, you're going to affect the comment section there. People like Mahogany. People like Lady Sings the Blues.
Well, yeah, Lady Sings the Blues isn't about Billy Dee, though. It's about Diana Ross.
Okay.
But he's completely. I can't imagine anyone else in the role but Billy Dee. He's wonderful.
Dark Gable. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, very much so. And Mahogany, I'm about Mahogany.
Okay.
I love Mahogany.
Right.
And he's wonderful in that, as is Diana Ross. Yeah.
Well,
I'm about a story about a black woman and her dreams. That was not a story that was popular, that had been played before. A black woman's dreams of beauty.
mm-hmm.
It was really modern. I love that film very much.
And I'm just wondering where Beyonce's version of that is.
Yeah.
That would be, if you want to win, you either remake Mahogany with Rihanna or Beyonce, and you can print money for the rest of your life.
Yeah. That's a story that speaks to the modern world as we're all changing and becoming more aware. And it has a pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be remade. She can do
Yeah.
Do you know where you're going to? She can sing.
Yeah, I would put Beyonce in that first then.
Yes.
So there you go, Hollywood. See, we're giving you more opportunities. You're not even thinking about these things. Or if you are.
The property is there. The property is already there.
Yeah, well, the problem with the remakes of these blaxploitation movies, in my opinion, I'm not a fan of any of them. It just seems like they all get done at the last minute. Like, we're going to lose all the rights if we don't start shooting next week. And the scripts are not
What about
together.
Dolomite Is My Name? So how you feel about that?
Well, that's
That
not
is
a remake. It's not a remake.
That's true. It's an original work.
Yeah, I like that a lot because I love Eddie Murphy. And he got
it's completely good.
the way the scene for me that he should have gotten a nomination at least for was when they step out of the scene, the front page with the antiquated Hollywood movie, the front page with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. It's like, look, if I can get in that light, I can take over the world. And then it comes back. It's like, look, it's like, why would you make a movie just for your community? It's like, because every city has one just like this. So the level of insight in terms of what blaxploitation cinema was about is right there in those two scenes. This desire to be seen and without compromising yourself, being yourself, being truthful, and at the same time recognizing that there are spheres of other people where that resonates. I mean, that's and Eddie, that's a perfect comeback movie as far as I'm concerned. So
I like what you said about that scene and what it was speaking to. My favorite scene in that film is when he acknowledges that he's not sexy. And he's just he's shy about taking his clothes off.
Right.
And I think that's so great. It's so he knew what he was and he knew what he wasn't.
Right.
And I just think that was so vulnerable and such a great thing to see.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, I mean, he just deserves more from while he's here.
Yes.
Because he carried a lot on his back for that next wave. But but yeah, and Wesley was great in that film too. I mean, just as Derville Martin playing Derville, I thought was great. And if we're gonna talk about that, then if you're gonna have a double feature, you got to put Badass with Mario Van Peebles playing his dad in the same night. That was an excellent film as far as I'm concerned. That very few people had a chance to see when it came out. So, but as far as the remakes go, I mean, the Shaft remake, I could tolerate the first John Singleton remake of Shaft, but by the time they got it to Kenya Barris, I was through. I was like, this is not even worthy of a money grab. Like, nobody wants this. Yeah. And the same I felt with Superfly. It's like, why take that title and make that film?
bad, bad, bad. That last Superfly, bad.
Yeah, it just upset me. I think you need people, like it's unfortunate that Hollywood just looks at these titles as intellectual property because it doesn't have the same emotional connection. Like, a white studio executive would think twice, maybe 3 or 4 times before he says, we're going to remake Gone with the Wind. But because so many of these films are precious gems to us, they didn't make sequels to too many of them outside of Shaft. At the time, we hold in our hearts very dearly Sparkle, Claudine. We don't get to see these things readily. So for them to come back and remake them without a sense of capturing the spirit of the original, I think hurts. It hurts me at least.
Mm-hmm.
But then when a Black Dynamite comes around, I'm like, hey, this is they get it. They are of the spirit. They're doing. They respect the genre enough to know what to make fun of and what isn't to be made fun of. Why do you think it ended?
It played its course. And as I write in the book, you didn't have to go to the movies anymore to see Black young people toting guns or being militant or being Black proud. It was happening on TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could see A Good Times or That's My Mama or The Jeffersons. And that was satisfying your need to see yourself. Didn't have to leave the house. You didn't have to spend money. And I think that was a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Why did it
investigate a lot of, the rise of the Hollywood blockbuster. Hollywood was no longer in trouble. They had Jaws, they had The Godfather, they had The Exorcist, they had malls being built in where white people lived, where they could have multiplexes, and they didn't need to migrate Black films into their communities. So the market for it became smaller as the box office grosses became bigger. I think that summer Jaws came out, Saturday Night Fever, all those kind of movies that appealed to everybody that didn't even need to have Black actors in them. We didn't have Landell Calrissian until much later. Like, hey, how are you making all this money? You're not putting Black people in these movies. We want to see these too. But they resolved themselves to the point where they didn't need us as much. And, we didn't necessarily the quality of the films wasn't there. We didn't have the writing talent or the directing talent in place to do things independently that we got later on with the next wave, where you had Spike Lee and John Singleton and a lot of people that were graduates of film school making independent films and then being brought into the studio system. And that's not to discount the wedge that the LA Rebellion filmmakers did. They bridged the gap in terms of
Jamal Fanakas and
Halle Garima, Julie Dash. I mean, it's not to say that Black film disappeared the minute studios stopped supporting them or drive-ins stopped showing them, because they could show just as successfully as a second run of Star Wars and fill up the drive-in as they could, bringing in an independent film, So, and also Burt Reynolds kind of heard it. He was making basically drive-in movies, and he encountered crossover success to the level of, putting, I guess if a lot of that stuff went to television, in terms of our representation, in terms of independent films, the novel idea got co-opted by the mainstream in terms of what is a high concept picture. It used to be studios didn't want to make a monster movie or some sort of weird, it came from outer space. And then by 1979, Alien comes out. and they put
Yes.
big money behind a movie that would have been like a guy in a rubber suit 20 years before, you know. So there's the success devises its own end, you know, and I don't think anybody was thinking ahead of the curve at that time, like what's going to be the next thing, what's the next opportunity for us to stay in this game. I think there was a perception that they had no control, the producers and directors. And there's a great documentary on the channel called Black Hollywood. I don't know if you saw it. It's a British TV special from the early 80s.
I have seen it many times.
Oh, well, speak on it. I mean, I'm curious because I feel like I'm the only person that knows about this film. What is it that you respond to in it? Black Hollywood.
My first thing that comes to mind is their use of vintage footage and the music, and I think they get the story right. You know, a lot of times documentaries don't have the money to pay for to play the Shaft song. Mm-hmm. So they had the money, and the editing is there, and I think it just tells it really well, quickly. And I like it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a documentary where they talk to a lot of the actors who were very successful in the 70s, and now it's like the mid 80s, like 82, 83, 84, and they're without work, and they're not necessarily saying, well, you know, what happened. They're just saying we need to be in a position of more power, and you know, Hollywood. And it's a shame because when the 80s, when it came back around again, those people were still active and could work and play somebody's mom or dad.
They were still young. Yeah, they were still young.
And they weren't being chosen for that. It seemed like the young directors needed to create their own stars.
Mm-hmm.
But what hurts that is they don't have the veteran on the set. It's almost like a football team. Or better yet, a basketball team. Sometimes there are players that are just on the team because they help build up the rest of the team into champions. You know, so I think that a lot of the younger directors in the early '80s, the ones that aren't really working right now, may have gotten blindsided because they were in the same position of the directors and the writers and the actors in the '70s of thinking, oh, well, I'm in. It's never going to end for me. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't have veterans around them saying, look out for this, look out for that, which is where you see a difference now. I always talk about Ava Duvernay. You have people that can run cover for you, right? So for Ava, it's Oprah. You know, Oprah can say, look out for this, look out for that. For Ryan Coogler, it's Forrest Whitaker. You know, Ryan Coogler would essentially not have a career if not for Fruitvale Station, which was a low-budget independent film that was financed basically by Forrest Whitaker. You know, so I think people have gotten smarter over time, or at least maybe we're at a saturation point where there's enough talent at all levels where we can actually visualize a mountain. You know, I'm not going to do this, but we can visualize. I already got one by with the rum and the cigarette lighter. You know, it's like, Jay-Z, are you listening? You know, we need mahogany. But you can't play him. We don't want that. Yeah. We don't want Jay-Z. You know, even Berry Gordy was smart enough to find Billy D in there, you know. But we need a mahogany. I don't know if we need too much else.
I think you're right. I think we need the glamour and the woman story, because it is the era of women coming to their position of power. It's a long time coming.
Absolutely.
A woman vice president. So mahogany is right in time with what's going on. Women are getting their day.
And I could deal with not in the theater. I mean, the theaters don't really exist anymore. If we're talking remakes, this is not a 70s remake. Waiting to Exhale could probably get one, and I wouldn't be too upset. Although the actors with Whitney in it, it might be sacrilege, but a story about friendship would be worthy. Was there a sequel did Terry McMillan write a sequel to that book? I'd be down for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a shame we just don't get that many good black movies. When we do get one, we hold it close to our hearts. So it's a dangerous, slippery slope to try and.
I'm interested in this Ma Rainey film. Have you seen the clips from that?
I have seen the clips.
She's incredible. She looks insane. She looks so great.
Well, we have the best talent. Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis with Denzel producing and George C. Wolfe directing. Good.
Can't wait to see that.
And
that's a story that's not known. People don't reference Ma Rainey.
Not at all. But I mean, for those who know Broadway, this is a long time coming. And what's great about it, is that Denzel owns the rights to all of those plays, those August Wilson plays. So
didn't know that. Like that.
So yeah, originally Fences was the first one, and now they've migrated. They're going to be on HBO, but now they've migrated over to Netflix. So we're going to get the entire cycle of August Wilson plays transferred to films with Denzel in charge. So, I like it. But I think it's a great swan song for Chadwick, and I can't wait to see that. That's a Christmas release. So, just final thoughts. I mean, we're 50 years have passed since Black people infiltrated the Hollywood studio system. I don't know if it exists with COVID. There's an argument that we may be on the verge of something similar. We're certainly not going to see the same kind of money spent to make films as Hollywood has been in the past, because the stakes are lower now with theaters sort of having conditioned for 9 to 10 months audiences to watch things at home. They've even made deals where movies that were going to be coming, the big Hollywood movies, are either being shelved, to like the James Bond movies being shelved to wait to see what happens, or they're being sold wholesale to these streaming services. Like Warner Brothers' entire slate has been moved over to HBO Max for day and date release simultaneous to theaters, right? So Hollywood's in trouble again. Should Black people save them? Should we save them again, or is this something different brewing? What are your final thoughts, Josiah?
Well, we'll see how we feel about that. We'll see how we feel about saving anyone else before we save ourselves. So we've got the talent. There is an opportunity for us, but we're going to be all right either way. We're going to be all right either way. It's not about whether we're going to save Hollywood or whether they're going to come to us. We're here. We're here now. We got our own production companies and studios and stars, and we're aware of our value, which is different than earlier times. We're aware of our value.
Yeah, but the same. We still Black. We still Black. We still.
We're still Black. But
we still watch Hollywood Shuffle. We're not in solidarity. I mean, me and you, maybe. You bring a third person in, now all of a sudden it ain't gonna be the same. There's no Three to Hard Ways coming. There's no.
Agree.
We're lucky we got Chadwick and Viola together, but a show of force.
That clip. Yeah.
A show of force. Like I don't see that happening. Like if you took Prince Akeem and you put him with another character like Big Mama or something, like like Bad Boys. That was Bad Boys 3 was a paycheck. It wasn't a power move. If it was a power move, it would have happened when everybody was right in the midst of things. So I hope you're right. I'll leave it at that. I hope you're right. But I just know the minute you bring, and money could be that third person. Two people can agree when a third person comes in and it's us. The jealousy all that kind of stuff. It makes it a little.
It changes the energy. It changes the energy.
So, but if we can get through this current cycle with a Mahogany remake with Beyonce, then the work is done as far as I'm concerned. Because I think that to me would be enough of a signal to reinvigorate the ideal for what Blaxploitation could have been, which is something that Charles talks about, which is to see ourselves not just being exploiting one another, being violent towards one another, selling drugs to one another, but the whole, and not just, but just truly loving one another, and they're, the Sounders, the Claudines, the Brothers. That's another movie that people don't talk about.
I love Brothers.
Which is the Angela Davis, George Jackson story.
I love Brothers. I just did a review of that online. Love it.
Yeah, Warner needs to get on now.
Talks about it.
It's not out, and I'm not sure why. And Uptown Saturday Night, not out. Not sure why. I mean, it'd be a little difficult to sell now because of the Cosby situation, but why that's not on Blu-ray is a travesty to me.
Well, this has been a wonderful talk. I'm so pleased and honored to be on the show. I'm a big fan, as I said at the top of the show.
Yes.
And I'm glad that we are celebrating 50 years of Black cinema.
Josiah Howard, likewise, we've interacted online quite a bit, but this is our first time actually having a conversation. Hopefully it won't be the last. And, we'll have to, in the words of Curtis Mayfield, we'll have to do it again. Let's do it again. Or
great.
I don't know who wrote it. Richard Wesley, who came up with that title? Let's do it again.
You know more than I know.
Just riffing.
Thank you very much.